It was my 4th date with Nelson, the time I like to see if me and my dates can be serious about each other. Not a lot of guys make it to the 4th date, especially when they learn I won't do the nasty right on our very first night together. Maybe I'm too demanding, but I see it more as being selective. I know what I like, but other guys don't seem to agree. I'm Ash Wilkes, and I have a year to go before I graduate college. My major is finances. My minor is business. My hobby is cooking. The more complex the recipe, the better. Tonight, I'm showing off. I love to cook. The cooking channel is my favorite channel, and my favorite program currently is It Tastes Expensive, but guess how much I really spend? That's right. 4th date time with Nelson. Time to pull out all the stops. I'm inviting Nelson over to my apartment for a home-cooked meal. Normally, it's me, my mom, and little sister Jocelyn. But Mom is taking Sis out for a burger and a movie tonight, so Nelson and I can have a little privacy. Can't forget about the dog. She's a black and brown mutt we think is half Chihuahua, and she's named Goose. We don't know how old she is, except she adopted us. She runs the household, and she can go from lying in a coma to full hyper in 0.2 seconds flat. Jocelyn chose the name because our little Chihuahua mix barks like an old goose. Goose is camping out with the television in Mom's room. She loves watching the flat screen. I can't believe it is my 4th date with Nelson already. Tonight must be perfect. As if right on cue, Goose started barking. There is nothing for her to bark at, but she is barking anyway. Had they shown a dog on the TV? Or a cat? Maybe she heard something through the paper-thin walls. I walked back to Mom's room to see what was happening. Goose honked like, well, a goose at the TV. All that was on was an infomercial with some guy selling a pizza-making kit, like a pizza stone, a mixer for making dough, a rolling cutter, a large jar of Parmesan, a large jar of oregano, a large jar of red flakes, and a personal blender for making your own sauce. Included was a recipe book. Why would she be barking at an infomercial guy? Especially a happy, excited bark. I walked inside and picked the 15-pound dog up. She stopped making a noise. I cuddled her a moment and then set her back on the bed. Goose resumed honking, staring at the TV as if she saw a long-lost friend. I sighed. The last thing I needed was my dog making a nuisance of herself. I carried the little dog with me to the kitchen, and, one-handed, grabbed a towel and removed dinner from the oven. I'm rather proud of dinner because I'd never made this dish before. Grilled herb-encrusted tilapia with a side of honey-infused mashed sweet potatoes, spring peas in a butter sauce, and garlic-infused carrots. I bought the white wine earlier today, a Pinot Grigio from Monterey, California, and it chilled in an ice bucket at the end of the table. For dessert, we have homemade tiramisu. I wanted to impress Nelson, so I lit 2 romantic taper candles on the table. All was ready, except that the dog wouldn't be quiet unless I held her. The doorbell rang. I glanced in a mirror to make sure I looked all right, and hurriedly opened the door. It was Nelson. Brown hair stylishly slicked back, brown eyes with a hint of a pout behind them, lips that usually smiled, but didn't tonight. He wore a green plaid shirt and faded jeans and cowboy boots. Not his usual fashion statement. Of course, Goose started barking, but it wasn't the friendly barking she used on the TV. It was an annoyed bark she reserved for strangers that entered the home. "Come in," I said. "Dinner just came out of the oven. Let me put Goose back in one of the bedrooms." "You didn't answer your phone," Nelson said. I shrugged and said, "It's on the charger back in my room. Never even heard it ring, and I've been too busy making us dinner to go check on it." Nelson paused and looked at anything but me when he said, "I thought you were ordering takeout." "No," I said. "I like to cook, and I wanted to impress you. Herb-encrusted tilapia with all the works. Give me a second to take care of the dog." Goose wouldn't stop her angry barking. I ran her back to Mom's room, turned the volume up on the television, and closed the door. That soothed her. I found Nelson at the dining room table, looking at the food I had already set out. I stopped by the stove and brought the tilapia out to the table. As I walked in, ready to plate the fish, Nelson said, "You must have spent hours on this." Why did he look so guilty? "I made the tiramisu yesterday," I said, "and Mom took Sis to the movies so we'd have the night to ourselves. As much as we can because they'll be back by 9. "You shouldn't have done this," Nelson said, but something in his voice rang hollow. I smiled and teasingly said, "I wanted you to know that I wasn't just another pretty face. This boy can cook. Listen, I'm serious about making us work out. That's why I did this. Next time, you come up with the menu, and I'll make it." At that, Nelson had the oddest look about his eyes. He completely avoided looking at me when he said, "You, have to understand that I appreciate this, but I can't stay. I tried calling, but you never answered, and I'm not going to break up by text." "Break up?" I asked. He nodded and said, "My ex came by earlier and convinced me not to give up on our relationship. I told him he gets one more chance. He's down below waiting in the car. We're going line dancing." "I see," I said. "You never answered your phone, which is why I'm here right now," Nelson said, and picked up the wine bottle and read the label. "So you can dump me," I said, "in person. That's classy." "It's only the 4th date. It shouldn't sting like this." I plated the fish and took the pan back into the kitchen. "I didn't realize you were making everything," Nelson said. "I feel terrible. I'm sorry." I placed a healthy serving of the sweet potato mash, the peas, and the carrots on the plates next to the tilapia. "Are you mad at me?" Nelson asked. I turned around, faced my new ex, and said, "No, disappointed. I thought you were somebody special. Turns out, you're not. Have fun with your ex. Just go." "I didn't think you and I were that serious," he said. "Now we will never be," I said. I took the 2 plates, walked across the hall, and rang the doorbell for my elderly neighbors, the Andersons. "You never told me you were making all this food," Nelson said. I couldn't believe how calm I took this. Later, I might be screaming, but now I only wanted to survive the sting of rejection and get out of this situation with my dignity somewhat intact. I simply replied to Nelson and said, "You're going to be late for line dancing. Remember, your date is waiting in the car. He'll probably be texting you wondering what's taking so long." "I didn't realize," Nelson said, but he was interrupted as elderly Mrs. Anderson opened the door. "Yes?" she asked, and saw the 2 plates of food. "Oh my, it looks delightful. That looks much better than the TV dinners we were going to have." "You know me," I said. "I like to cook, and I made too much, just like usual. Enjoy." "Honey," Ash, our neighbor from across the hall, brought us a feast, Mrs. Anderson said, taking the plates from me. Let me give you some money. I gave her my best smile and said, I could never take money from a woman as pretty as you. Her eyes opened a little wider, and she said, You're nothing but a charmer. I bet you're after my chocolate chip cookies. Guilty, I said. I'll make some tomorrow. She laughed as she closed the door. Unfortunately, Nelson stood a little behind me, and he asked, Why are you giving all that food away? You could have it for lunch or something. As I turned to go back to my apartment, I simply replied, I don't like the way reheated fish tastes. Nelson seemed like he was about to say something, almost like he wanted to apologize. So I quickly said, What are you still doing here? You've dumped me. I've dated guys like you before. Highest bidder syndrome. What does that mean? He asked. It means that you look at all the options, I said, and then choose the one where you think you'll get the most. When you thought that tonight was nothing but takeout and watching TV, you chose line dancing with your ex over me. It's not that way, Nelson said. Keep telling yourself that, I said. Can't we talk about this? Nelson asked. What's to talk about? I said. You win. I'm dumped. Did you expect me to make a scene and start screaming? Did you expect me to beg to have you come back? It's not my style. Just leave. There's better men out there. At least he's not boring like you, Nelson said. I gave the classic, but can he cook? Went into my apartment and shut the door. On the ring cam, I saw Nelson look at the door, then look at a text on his phone, and then he walked away. Thank God. I guess I'd made my point. Hopefully he breaks a toe tonight. Why is it so hard for me to get past 4 dates, I said, fighting the burn of tears. I wish I could find a man who would appreciate me. On the bright side, once I cleaned up, I could drown my sorrows with white wine and tiramisu while binge-watching British Bake Off. I let Goose out. She ran around the apartment and ran and ran. At least somebody was enjoying themselves. After making a plate for me and a smaller plate for Goose, I packed the rest into lunch containers, cleaned up the kitchen and dining room, and staked my claim in front of the flat screen. The infomercial advertising the pizza-making kit was still on TV. The host was about my age, tall, had a ton of energy, a mop of curly black hair, and laughing blue eyes. His parents were obviously Greek, because he looked like a Greek god come to life. The man wore a black, short-sleeve, button-down shirt underneath his white apron. They always hire cute guys for shows like this. His voice grabbed my attention as he said, I'm Eratosthenes. You, my friend, are having trouble attracting the right person. I can help. Besides, who doesn't like pizza? In less than 30 minutes, you can have a delicious, homemade pizza ready to impress your boyfriend. Maybe they can help you build a custom pizza, say a Hawaiian-style Chicago deep dish, or a New York thin-crust meat lovers. Maybe go full Italian with pepperoni and mozzarella and a simple sauce made with fresh tomatoes. Any guy you wish can be yours. Or maybe it's time for someone different. You know I'm talking to you, Ash. I jolted out of my dazed slumber. Had the guy on the TV just called my name? That's impossible. The man must have said something that sounded like Ash, or maybe he had said not to overbake it because then it will taste like Ash. More likely I must have dreamed it. Still, the infomercial was about making pizza, and the guy was handsome. Godly handsome. Come down out of heaven kind of handsome. If I hadn't already owned my own mixer and all the other stuff and knew how to make pizza, I might have ordered a pizza making kit on the spot. Besides, Pizza always made me feel better. I'd given a lot of tonight's food away or packed it for lunches, but I was hungry. I placed my mixer on the counter and whipped up some dough, enough for 2 pizzas. As soon as I set the mixer on dough mode and it started kneading the dough, I searched through the fridge for toppings. Onions, pepperoni, bacon, some red peppers, leftover sweet potatoes from the mash, chunky vegetable spaghetti sauce, cheddar cheese. I could work with those. I let the mixer take over for the next few minutes as I chopped the vegetables, shredded the cheese, then let the dough rest for 30 minutes before dividing it into 2 pieces. I kept checking on the TV, but though it was the same guy, he was selling some kind of sushi roller now. Why had I thought he'd said my name? I was more tired than I thought. The timer beeped, and I went back to the mixer, divided the dough, and quickly made 2 pizza crusts. One became a sweet potato-infused vegetarian with a garlic crust. The other became pepperoni and bacon pizza with cheese in its crust. In no time, the apartment smelled like heaven. On a whim, I turned to the guy on the big screen and said, "Thanks for the inspiration. Pizzas come out in 10 minutes. Do you want to join me?" I can't believe I asked that. I'm a tired, stupid fool. I was about to change the channel when something weird happened. Did Erato just wink at me? Through the TV? His smile was solid gold as he asked, "Have you ever asked yourself, what can you bring to a relationship, Ash?" "I'm having a conversation with the TV," I said. "Not only am I bad at keeping a boyfriend, I'm insane." "Go with it," Erato said. "I cook," I said. "I try to be a good partner and even considerate. And I try to be understanding. I have a job that pays pretty well, and I'm going to school, but nobody wants to stay with me. I guess I'm as boring as they say. What's wrong with me?" Erato folded his arms and leaned into the camera and said, "Ash, what do you want out of a boyfriend?" "A guy that sticks around until I'm 80 or 90, I said. "We'll both be loyal to each other, love each other, he would be proud of me, and wouldn't mind being seen with me. I'll be important to him. And this is crazy. I'm talking to a television host on the shopping network." Erato once again smiled, and this time he quietly said, "What would you be willing to give up for him?" "I'm not going to sell my soul if that's what you mean, but I'll make him home-cooked meals every day," I said. "I'll figure out what he likes and I'll learn to cook that way. Let's say it's you. I'll learn to cook Greek food. I'll be devoted to you. I'll love you. I'll turn our house into a home. I'll try and make you happy." "I have a pretty demanding job," Erato said, "and it requires a lot of travel." "If you need me to come along, I'll do my best to help you," I said. "Then the contract is easy," Erato said. "I will need 1 kiss from you every day before midnight, and if you forget, the contract is canceled." "Contract?" I said. "What do you mean? A kiss every day? How is that possible when you're traveling all the time?" "Let me worry about that," Erato said. "You're as crazy as me," I said. "It only takes a kiss to seal a contract." Erato once again smiled at me and said, "We'll start with a 1-week trial contract to make sure we like each other, with the option of renewing for up to a year. If all goes well, we can extend it up to a 90-year contract, as long as you kiss me every day. It will be the longest contract of my life, but it's going to be worth it to get away from my family. The document should be arriving now, and will need your signature." What the heck? My doorbell rang. Oddly, Goose did not bark. "Wait, are you a demon?" I asked. Dad called me that a couple of times because I could really get the wrong people mad, especially my brother Cal. I think it's safe to say that I pitch for another team than the one you're thinking of, he said. I opened the door. A man stood there, wearing a delivery uniform for speedy shipping. He handed me an envelope and a pen. As soon as I opened the envelope, he pointed to a line and said, "Sign here." I read through the contract. It was written in old-fashioned calligraphic handwriting with all the swirls, and was on old yellowed parchment. Ash Wilkes and Eratosthenes have formally engaged in a contract of mutual benefit that will last as long as Ash kisses Eratosthenes by midnight every day. Please refer to the stipulations and required listed below. Cal is not going to like this, the delivery guy said. But I will be free of his meddling, he said. Your real name is Eratosthenes? I asked. I know it's a mouthful, which is why I go by Erato, he said. The contract was exactly what Erato and I talked about. How did this happen so fast? This is a weird dream. It has to be. So I signed. In a second, the delivery person whisked the contract out of my hands, left me a copy, and was gone. Did you know him? I asked. Is my half-brother, Erato said. The timer for the pizzas rang. Time to drown the weird night with pizza and wine. I pulled the 2 pizzas from the oven and set them on the table. Getting dumped must have made me a little crazy. I'm having pizza with a television shopping host. Now we are talking about family life? Can I even explain all this? Are you ready for our first date, Ash? Erato said from the television. You don't have much wine left, so I'll bring a bottle. This is impossible. I'm talking to the TV, the flipping TV. I should have asked this earlier, but it had slipped my mind. How do you know my name? I learn as much as I can about my potential clients. You are Ash Wilkes, he said. College student, lives with his mom and sister. Cute guy, just got dumped, makes his own food, has a collection of cooking magazines, and has thousands of saved recipes on his phone. Gets intimidated around guys. I know that you're desperately in need of a little help. Helping people is my specialty. Oh my God. As I watched, Erato stepped out of the large screen television, ducking a little to keep from bumping his head. He held a bottle of wine in one hand and a couple of wine glasses in the other. I can't believe what I just saw. I stopped moving. I stopped breathing. I stopped thinking. I stared at the man who was suddenly in the apartment. I finally took a breath and remembered my manners and said, "Welcome to my home." Goose didn't bark. The little dog wagged her tail. Erato reached down and scratched her head and said, "Good thing dogs like me, but they sure don't like my brother Cal." Who is Cal? I asked. Including me, there's 9 brothers. Cal is the oldest. Dad was never around, so Mom raised all of us. Dad didn't believe in settling down with one woman, Erato said. 9 brothers and a half-brother. Your family is huge, I said. Actually, it's several half-brothers and half-sisters and more cousins than I can remember names, Erato said. I'll explain everything once we get to know each other. But right now, the pizza is hot and the cheese is sizzling. Let's eat. After an evening of talking and sharing and eating and drinking and finally cleaning up, I somehow ended up in bed. I woke, remembering the weird night. Actually, the weird dream. I had been dumped, and I had dreamed the shopping channel host had stepped out of the TV. We had made pizza. My mind shifted to the now, and I daydreamed of alternate ways to make the pizza. I dreamed on a new way to make a better dough, and what it would take to make a tastier sauce. The recipes flowed through my brain. I found a notebook and wrote the new recipes down. "Breakfast is ready," came my mom's voice through the door. "Come in," I said. Mom opened the door and stared at my bed. I had slept alone last night, hadn't I? So why is Mom staring? She stared at a sleeping man in my bed. The sleeping Greek man who had stepped out of the television last night slept in my bed. Oh my God. What was his name again? Startled and shocked, Mom yelled, "Who is sleeping in your bed?" I saw the copy of the contract on the bedside table and quickly remembered everything. "Mom, that's Erato." "Eratosthenes," he quickly said, sitting up to face Mom. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wilkes. I'm Ash's new boyfriend." Oh my God. I had a new boyfriend? He didn't wear a shirt. I didn't know if he wore anything underneath the blanket. But think of any Greek statue and that was him. Flawless skin, a little on the olive side, a messy mop of black curls that looked completely natural and sexy on him, blue eyes that looked like bits of crystal, and a sculpted body that only existed on Greek statues. I couldn't stop staring at the gorgeous man in my bed. Neither could Mom. Neither could my sister, who somehow was standing right behind Mom. "Ash brought a man home last night?" Jocelyn said. "We didn't do anything," I said. "It's not what you think." Mom's face set hard, and she said, "Your date needs to leave. This is not appropriate behavior in front of your sister. Jocelyn, you will go to your room now." "But Mom," my sister said. "Now, young lady, I want to talk to your brother alone." She then spoke only to me. "Get dressed and meet me in the dining room. I'm not kidding. Your boyfriend needs to leave." Mom closed the door, and Erato and I dressed. As we finished dressing, Mom yelled, "Ash, get in here." Ooh, she was mad. But mad about what? "I'll see you later," Erato said. "Count on it," I said. Completely ignoring Mom, I walked him to the front door and let him out. As the door closed behind him, Mom literally snarled as she ordered, "This is unacceptable behavior. What were you thinking? We live here and we don't need your sexual gymnastics interrupting us. I never expected you to act just like your father." "Mom," I said, "nothing happened." "You expect me to believe that?" Mom yelled. "And as long as you live under my roof, nothing will happen again. This is not that kind of house." "You're kicking me out because I have a boyfriend?" I asked. "I thought you accepted me." Mom went quiet, and when she spoke, her voice turned to steel. "Stop making yourself into the victim, and I'm not kicking you out as long as you promise to never have sleepovers again." "Mom, you can't order me around. I'm 21. The dam broke, and Mom yelled, "I pay rent. You pay nothing. I pay all the bills. You pay nothing. You do a few chores like cooking and vacuuming and keeping your room neat. And in exchange, I let you live here so you can finish college. This is not a dorm room to do with as you please, but my apartment. Does your boyfriend expect to stay here for free as well? The answer is no. I don't want or need another mouth leeching off of me. Your boyfriend is not welcome here." Underneath all that, I detected a bit of Mom's resentment. Resentment that I still lived at home. Resentment that she still supported me, in spite of the fact I paid my own bills, like phone and car and insurance and tuition. Resentment that her life hadn't turned out like she wanted. Resentment that Dad had left us when I was 15, for his new family, and his fancy lawyer had shafted Mom on alimony and child support, even though Mom got full custody. Resentment that full custody meant she had to take care of Jocelyn and me. She was so busy working, she seldom went out. The realization felt like a gut punch. It made sense. Mom resented me. She could never bring a date home because her kids were here. I could get angry about this. I could vent like she was doing. Part of me wanted to start shouting, but instead I said, "Nice to know you think me a leech. What do you want me to do then?" Mom, still fuming, said nothing, because if she did, she'd sound like a bad mother. I sighed, went back to my room, and packed the things I'd need for the day. As I neatened my bed, I smelt the subtle scent of erato on the sheets. It took me to a faraway land, and for a second, I thought I heard music. Erato was real. I hadn't dreamed it. I reread the contract, and part of me became scared. As long as I kissed him every day, he'd stay around for as long as I wanted. My perfect, magical boyfriend who could walk through televisions. Who was the man called Erato? What had I gotten myself into? If all it took was a kiss, maybe I could do this. On a whim, I looked at the recipes I'd written down. They were a little rough, but actually quite good. I would have to try them tonight. There was an online recipe contest at foodies.com. I could type these out and submit them. Then again, what do I do about Mom? Last night, I get dumped, and then Erato stepped out of the TV, and the next day, this morning, my life changed, and Mom went ballistic because she found him in my bed. We hadn't even done anything, except sleep. Maybe she couldn't accept that I had grown up, or she had flashbacks to Dad's unfaithfulness. The clause stated that I needed to kiss Erato every day. If Mom banned him from the apartment, that meant we had to have a place of our own. I needed my own place, one where Mom couldn't dictate everything. I had dreamed about this moment and dreaded it at the same time. I opened up the app, Rentals on a Budget, typed in my zip code, and looked through the listings. Ideally, it would have to be affordable. A 2-bedroom would be nice, but I think a 1-bedroom or a studio would have to do, and availability would have to be soon. I was about to turn my life upside down and sideways for a man I'd only met last night. A man that stepped out of my TV. A man I didn't know. A man that didn't mind being with me. I laughed to myself. I had made a decision. I was about to step off the cliff and into the unknown. What I was about to do only proved I was crazy. Making sure I was alone, I turned the flat screen in the living room on and spoke. "Erato, I'm going out looking for our own place. Do you want to come?" His image flickered on the TV, and he said, "Love to." Just like last night, he stepped through the screen, but this time he brought a couple of water bottles and a basket of snacks. "How do you do that?" I asked. "One of Mom's tricks," he said. "I made a list of places we can look." "So did I. I'm not going to class today, so we'll have more time to check," I said. We held hands as we walked to the door. Mom marched towards us, arms folded, and yelled, "You're sloughing classes to be with this boy? I don't approve. What kind of a name is Erato anyway? I don't know what kind of game he's playing, but I don't like it. You stay away from my son, you hear? I don't want you back in my apartment." Erato nodded and said, "My dad chose my name, and it is Greek, and it's mostly given to girls, but it's not unheard of for boys to have it. Don't worry, Mrs. Wilkes. You won't see me ever again. "Zip it, Mom, you're being rude," I shouted. "I'm an adult, and you have no say about who I date." Mom glared at me and shouted, "I'm your mother. I've taken care of you, especially since your father left. Look at what your boyfriend has done to you. You're talking back to me. You are shouting at me. You will show me respect." "Knock it off, Mom," I yelled. "Keep this up and you won't see me again either." Why was Mom acting like this? She wanted me to date, but didn't want me to at the same time. Maybe it was time to stake my independence. And in front of Mom, I stood on my toes and pulled Erato close, and we deeply kissed. An electric kiss. I felt tingles clear to my toes and fingers. His kiss reminded me of long midnight dances in the faraway meadows as the moon slowly crossed the sky. It awakened something adventurous inside me. I also didn't realize how tall Erato was until I released him. Erato whispered so soft that only I heard him. "I'm going to like this contract. By the way, contract fulfilled." Chapter 2 will be coming soon as I write it. Thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next Wednesday. If you'd like more stories about gay men falling in love, stop by my channel. Peace.